Good morning, everyone, and welcome to TownNews.com's 2016 customer webinar. Today, Tim Turner, our Content Exchange Program Manager, will share some exciting changes to that program, including a pile of new channels you'll want to subscribe to right away. Then Christine Masters, our Director of Product Management, will show off a brand new feature called Utility Regions that lets you place blocks, ads, and promotions on your site in places that used to be inaccessible. We'll cover the formal presentation in about 30 minutes, after which we'll do a Q&A. Feel free to type your questions into the chat box at any time, but we'll hold off on answering until the end of the presentation. Take it away, Tim.
Thanks, Aaron. All right. Glad to be on the call with you all this morning. We're going to start off by just talking briefly about the Content Exchange, just an overview of the program. If you need a more detailed presentation, feel free to reach out to me or your sales rep, and we can schedule an appointment. We're assuming most of the people on this call are existing customers who are excited about the new features we're going to talk about, but we know some new customers might be on the call. So in the past 7 months, Town News has started a content exchange, encouraging our customers to share their content with each other. We thought that we were seeing a growing trend in the industry where more people are having a distributed approach to how they get their content in front of an audience and growing their audience. And we really felt like we were positioned uniquely to create a pretty good network for our customers. So some of the benefits of the Town News Content Exchange, obviously we put a lot of thought into how we curate content. We've developed some tools unique to our system, and then we also have human level curators that make sure that the channels are really good. We're also really focused on engagement metrics on the content. We kind of measure how the content's performing and want to make sure that the content that we put on your site is going to perform better than other content you can put on your site to justify its existence. And then another benefit that we give our customers is control over who can use their content through our digital rights management software. So there's two different groups for the Content Exchange. There's the source publisher who creates the content and the destination publisher who displays the content. There's a little bit more benefits for the source publisher. Every article that moves through the Content Exchange carries along with it the canonical URL, and that's kind of the digital way of giving your site credit for creating that. And what that does is when people search for that article on search engines, they're not going to be hit with 100 different versions of that article across all Town News sites. They're only going to see one result, and that's for your article. The canonical gives that SEO juice back to you, so it definitely gives you power there. We also have some branding on content that moves to the Content Exchange saying, hey, this article came from this site. It kind of helps you establish yourself as a thought leader in certain areas, and we're looking at different ways where we can improve that branding to really establish your brand the same way that some of our third-party publishers have. And then we also have tag-along ads, which they're ads that we put in regions we control on the content that moves to the exchange and gives the source publisher a little bit more revenue for being the original creator of the site. Destination publishers, on the other hand, they get the benefit of having the extra page views, which means that comes along with all their existing ad regions. So they continue to get all the ad regions they would normally have and all the revenue from having more content on their site.
Hey, Tim, we did just have a question come in that I think is relevant here. Does the Content Exchange include rights to print the stories, or is it just for online presentation?
Right. So the digital rights management does have a rule that restricts how people can use the content, what platform, broadcast, print, radio, or online only. Right now, most of our people have their content open for all usage. So yeah, it's a lot. If it's not restricted for print, it is allowed to be used in print, and we can help you set up those DRM rules. It's really easy to do to restrict it for print use if you want to. For the tag-along ads, we have 2 ads on desktop and 1 on mobile. These are on the Flex templates. As you can see, the ad shows directly below the photo. The rest of these ads on the page are the ads to the source publisher. They're programmatic ads. I know you probably can't see my mouse, but I'm used to doing this on Join Me. But
we can see your mouse.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. So yeah, the red box is where the ads show up. So right now we have 220 different domains participating in 36 states. It represents, these 220 domains represent about 54 million unique users a month, so about half of what Town News has across their entire network. We have a lot of our larger publishers participating in the content exchange, so a lot of power there in those 220 domains. We started off reaching out to our larger publishers, in addition to a little test run in Iowa to get in front of the caucuses. Since then, we've been growing and expanding out to all of our publishers. So one of the reasons we want to have this call today is kind of talk about our kind of focus on human level curation and the channels that we're pushing out. As you can see, we have about more than a dozen channels. We probably have over 20 channels when you break it down by the different states that are available. But these are channels that have, most of them are of national interest that we're curating on the Content Exchange. One that we're really excited about, and we're going to do a big announcement about this week, is our NFL channel. We partnered with ProFootballWeekly.com, who's a really great source of NFL content. They cover all 32 teams. And then in addition to Pro Football Weekly, we also have several Content Exchange participants who also create NFL content, where their content will be mixed in with this. And then Pro Football Weekly also offers kind of optional print packages. And we're going to do another webinar with them in a couple weeks to talk about their print tabs that are available to all of our customers. So that's really exciting. Another channel that we've really been focusing on is health. This was a high demand channel from all of our customers that we've spoken to. They were really interested in having more health content. It's an area where they're seeing obviously a lot of interest, but also a lot of revenue, both on local and programmatic. So we definitely wanted to help fulfill their needs for the health content. All the content comes from Content Exchange members. We do have several members who have really nice health verticals that help us produce a lot of content and a really consistent flow. All the content right now is available for print and online. The focus is more on healthy living and kind of uplifting features about health topics, and then some news related. I know there's a lot of Zika related news going on right now that we're talking about. We just did an interesting article about a new bicycle helmet rating system that I found really interesting. It's the same people who kind of revolutionized safety for football helmets are now focusing on bicycle helmets. So just a lot of really good, interesting stuff that I think will be relevant to your readers. And then a lot of our readers, a lot of our customers are in the Midwest and the West, and really all over. We found there's a huge interest in agricultural content, and we feel like it's kind of a segment that's underserved by a lot of other syndication services. And we have a lot of really good ag content coming from our publishers. A lot of them have their own ag verticals. We do have at least several. We have at least one whose sole focus is agriculture, one customer. So lots of really good ag content. Same content's available on print and online, and we think all the content that's being pushed out is relevant to a national audience. Some of the best practices we've seen that our customers implement the Content Exchange. Obviously, we try to get, since the Content Exchange isn't being indexed by search engines, I mean, the content doesn't push users to our Content Exchange articles. The main way that users are getting to Content Exchange content right now is through home pages and index pages. We've worked with a lot of different customers in creating kind of what we call a most recent block on their homepage above the fold. The goal is to make sure your featured blocks really highlight your local content, but we also get blocks up above the fold that are showing how much content you're adding to your site, and most of that being from the Content Exchange. So we've had a lot of success with most recent blocks in various forms, pushing content, pushing page views to the Content Exchange. What we like to do is, if we can, if you have an existing section for content, we would like to add the Content Exchange content to that existing section. By having a mix, it really lifts up those verticals that you create. If you're pushing maybe 1 or 2 articles a week to a section, it's not going to get as much attention if you're pushing content to that section every single day. And the Content Exchange really allows you to do that for the different channels that we're curating. We also, when we talk about how you should organize the kind of section and subsection hierarchy for your site, we like to put the Content Exchange articles as subsections under existing sections on their site, rather than just standalone sections. Because what this does is if you make them their own standalone sections, you kind of create these walled gardens on your site. And so when people visit it, our article-to-article navigation tools will only show them more content exchange articles. They won't show a mix of local and national content. But if it's a subsection, you get this mix of both when you're using article-to-article navigation and other content recommendation tools. So it seems to work out a lot better if you make the content exchange new sections, subsections of your existing site. Another thing that we're really focusing on too is getting a block on email newsletters that push people to the national content. We're pushing your site through the content exchange. This is just the way to get more eyeballs on content exchange content. We really like email users. They consume a lot of content when they go to your site. On average, about twice as much as a normal user who's navigated to your site. So email users are a really great way of driving up page views and just showing that you have a lot more content. Also tends to drive more users from your email to your site. And then another thing that we really encourage people to do for these content exchange, especially if you create a new subsection that's pretty much just populated by content exchange, is try to schedule more programmatic ad units around that content. That way you see more revenue lift from it. A lot of our customers are still selling their online ads by like share of voice. So they really don't see revenue gains as the destination publisher because they're not generating any more revenue from increases in page views. So really what we're trying to work with them is if you don't have a programmatic provider, Town News can help you out with that through our IQ program. But if you are doing programmatic, schedule more programmatic around your content exchange content. That way you'll actually see increased revenue from the increased page views on the content exchange. We're really excited about the content exchange. We're talking to people every single day about new partnership opportunities, new ways to grow. We're looking at the data. We're really focused on video content right now. We know a lot of our customers are asking for a lot more video content. We've had several really good conversations. We're hoping to have some good video content pushed out really soon. We also are talking to more third-party providers. We're looking at more lifestyles content. We saw pretty good, when we were looking at data, CPMs for lifestyles, but not a lot of content being generated in those sections. So we're trying to find more lifestyles content to push out to sites to see if those higher CPMs hold up, if there's more impressions. Another thing that we're always looking at is adding more content channels. There's kind of different ways that we look at that. We look at our own data and see where the audience is interested at. We look at where the revenue is being spent, and also we take feedback from customers in terms of what their needs might be. So if you have a channel that you're interested in that we don't have, that's definitely something to talk to us about, and we can see what we can do. We have created custom one-off channels for customers to use for their site. So if there's something you don't see, we can probably find the content. So definitely reach out to us. And then one of the things that we plan on making kind of a regular occurrence are newsletters that kind of identify best practices, use cases, new channels, new customers. We want to be in really good communication with our members of the content exchange. So plan on receiving at least one a month. Our goal is 1 to 2 a month to let you know about what's going on. We don't want to push too much out to you, but we also want to keep you aware of what's going on. And then another big initiative of ours is providing more in-depth reporting. That's going to give you more idea of how your content's performing on other sites, what channels within the content exchange are performing well that you might consider adding to your sites, and just as much data as we can give you to better see how the content exchange is performing for you. So if you're interested in joining the content exchange, you're not already a member, please reach out to your sales representative, or you can email us at contentexchange@townnews.com. Also, if you need help adding new channels to your site, if you're already a customer, reach out to our customer support team, and they can help you, guide you through those steps and get the new content added to your site. All right, do we have any content exchange questions at this time?
We had one more question that came in. Are you looking or hoping for any particular type or topic of content to be shared into the content exchange?
We're always looking for anything that. So one of the things we try to look at too is is there any segment that's kind of underserved, underutilized, that's really popular? One of the things we're looking at right now is kind of racing, but not like NASCAR or IndyCar. We're trying to do as much we can for those, but more like the dirt track racing kind of things that are really popular. We're also looking at kind of a wine and food segment. We do have a couple publishers who do a lot with wine. We're trying to see how we can package that with other content to provide that as a channel out there. So we're looking for anything that we think can perform well and that has an audience. So if anyone has any ideas, please reach out to us and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, that's it for questions at this time, but please feel free to type them into the question box and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. We're doing a little dance here, passing the baton over to Christine so she can talk about utility regions.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and we're really excited about the content exchange as well. I was just talking to somebody yesterday, and he was very impressed with kind of the quality of some of the channels, the breaking news, the viral content. It's really impressive. So this is definitely something to look into if anyone's interested in that type of thing. So
we did mention that it's free, right?
And it's free.
Yeah,
That's the other thing. that was one of the things that people were saying is like, so what's the catch?
Yeah.
And it's not really that there's a catch in this. It's just that we're really leveraging the power of being a Town News customer. We have a lot of customers that are creating great content every day, and we think it's a great way to help each other out and really surface great content and spread it out around the internet.
Right, a lot of our philosophy is looking at kind of best practices with some of our larger customers and seeing how we can scale those out to our entire customer base. And a lot of our larger customers have seen a lot of success sharing content internally and also pulling in content from third parties. So we looked at how we can create a network for all of our customers to do that kind of same level thing, those that might not have the benefit of being a part of a large group. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we're really looking at this.
And there's also one thing to think about is sometimes they have specialized content that is difficult to get, an automotive reporter, an entertainment reporter that you might not have access to as a smaller or mid-sized newspaper, but there are some customers that still have that dedicated auto reporter. So some really great stuff there. So I just wanted to have a really quick discussion about a new feature that was launched last week, a couple weeks ago, and this is something that it does provide a lot of new features and enhancements that are possible now. We just wanted to kind of go through. We've seen some customers using some great ideas for how to utilize the utility regions, and just wanted to talk a little bit about what they are. At the end of this, I'm actually going to jump off really quick and show this in the admin so that you get a little bit of a better sense of what this looks like and how to use it. So it'll be a little bit different, but to start off with, this is a brand new feature that we've had in the last couple of weeks. Essentially, in the block editor, there's only certain pages that you can get to in your block editor where you can drag and drop blocks of content into specialized regions on your pages. And most of the time, things like search results pages or special content and special asset pages are not available in the block editor because those are dynamic pages or they're specific to a specific asset type. So in the block editor now, you do see a new pane in the block editor interface that has an area now called utility regions, and it might be closed off to the side next to where page customizations are. But you can open that and you'll now see a couple of different groups for all assets, and these are utility regions that can be on all asset types or specifically articles, and there's a couple other asset specific groups as well. And then these are basically just new regions into which you can place blocks of content. And like I said, there are some new things that we're coming out with these as well. For example, being able to put content specifically onto a search results page or in the middle of search results content. So those are some things now that we are able to do, and I'll go over a couple of these things. But first off, just to mention that these are just the same as regions. They are regions and they follow the same rules as other regions do. So you might have specific regions that are available on specific applications. So we're in the near future, we're going to launch some search-specific regions that will only be available when you click on the search application page. And same thing with classifieds and business directory. We're coming out with some other application types. So those will be available on the URLs associated with those specific applications. And it's also worth noting that these inherit just like other regions do. So if you put one on the top level URL, that will inherit down to all of the other pages unless you break inheritance. And you can put them on specific section pages. So if you wanted to put something at the top of all articles in the sports section, you could use the top of article region on only the sports section, and that would inherit down to everything within the sports section, but it wouldn't show up on the news section. So all of those same rules that you're used to with regions will still apply. So here's just a couple of examples I wanted to walk through to give you some ideas on ways to do this, and things to do with this. And a lot of people have done some of these types of things before, but the way that we did them is through either option include points or custom code on the page. But you now have the ability to just come in and do that straight in the block editor and not have to talk to a programmer or to our customer support staff. So essentially, this is just a quick idea here. We've seen a lot of different people in the industry doing this at the point where someone's reading a story. This is the bottom of the article, and you can kind of say something to the effect of, do you like this story? If so, you can get more local coverage by subscribing to our print edition for only 99 cents. Click here, and then that gives you a nice offer, and then they can go off to the subscribe page and subscribe. It's also great to promote an email newsletter if you want to get them to sign up for a newsletter. You could also switch these out. On some days you might want to try a couple weeks with the email newsletter. You might want to try a couple weeks with a subscription offer. And just by swapping out that block with a different block, you can change that up. Or you can actually promote both of them at the same time if you want to just put them all in that same paragraph. But there's lots of different things you can do with this. And again, you can put this at the top of the article, in the middle of the article, at the bottom of the article, and kind of promote an additional action point especially for those people that are coming straight through into the article page without going through the front page. This is a way to get them to perform a secondary action to subscribe to something, to subscribe to a newsletter, or subscribe to the paper. Again, this can be section specific, so you can create special language for the sports section versus the obituary section versus the news section. So if you wanted to promote a special print edition that's coming up, or a prep sports tab that you're doing, or just in the sports section, you could do that. Make sure to check out your local stores for the Sunday edition of this paper with our special section. Those are all things that are very easy to do using this, and again, promoting additional content to users who are already on that page. I did promote or recommend here the utility text block on Flex is a good block where you can just kind of type in some language, HTML in there for your click option here. Click option there, and then that way you can have some, if you wanted to add specific language or specific HTML to link off to, that can all be accomplished there. Here's another example of using the bottom of article utility region, where in this case, I created this block here that I called popular stories, and this is on Flex using the grid block, and I actually put 6 different grid options here. And I used the mobile-friendly impact block type for this as well, so that these shrink down very small on the mobile version. And this is, again, just a really nice way. This can be just to promote additional content on these pages. These can be section-specific, so you can put just sports articles in sports sections. And then you might want to do, for example, you don't include this on the obituary section because on that section you want to promote an obituaries newsletter. So again, this is something that you can add these types of blocks in certain circumstances. We do have utility regions that are specific to video assets, and this will allow you to do another block that is similar. Again, I'm using a grid block here, but in this case I created a block that was only videos from that particular section. And so again, you can create different types of content to promote that same type of content on video assets or other types of assets. And again, it can be section specific. A couple of other really quick ad ideas to throw out there. as always, I showed mostly content ideas, but as always, we have in Flex, we have the ability to do add blocks. So anywhere that you can put a content block in any of these utility regions, you can also add a new ad position for an ad block there. So again, if you wanted to have kind of a sponsorship ad on the sports section, you could use the top of article region for that. If you wanted to have a special mobile ad at the very top, there's something called a skyline region that would be good for that. There's lots of these different types of things that if there's certain places that you wanted to put either an ad or you wanted to put additional promoted content but you weren't able to, this is something that you can now do. One other thing to note that we were actually just talking to somebody about this yesterday. They were looking for ways to add I think it was a block of code for commenting on their site, and they were trying to figure out how to put it at the bottom of the story. Well, it's very easy to create an HTML block type in the block editor and then put it in the bottom of story utility region, and then you put your custom code on the bottom of that region. It's a very easy way to add code to the page without having to have custom templates or talk to a developer. We mentioned a little bit already about content promotion. If you have print special sections or you wanted to drive traffic to a coupon page or some kind of special e-edition you're doing, that's a great usage. If you had some really nice local content, again, consider a large portion of your users are coming straight into an article page, and how can we surface more content to those people that are very interesting, your best content. So consider, an editor's pick block of just the really great local content and add that either to the bottom of the story, the middle of the story. New services, if you're offering, a new newsletter or a special subscription rate, any of those things, those could be promoted there. One other idea to mention is that with utility regions, you can actually have a mobile-friendly right rail, and you can say, I want to have on the front page, we now have a front page specific region on the right rail. I can have specific blocks on my front page, different blocks on my index pages, and then I can use the utility regions to create an article specific right rail that might have less content in it. We've seen that probably 5% of users actually scroll past the bottom of the story, and on mobile, a lot of times we see that people have, 15 different blocks in their right rail, and those all become content on the bottom of the mobile article. And so this gives you the opportunity to just have a couple of specific, a couple of ad blocks and maybe a top stories block to really make those mobile pages faster and not have a lot of the other stuff that just kind of bloats the page and the mobile view on just the right rail. But then you can still have, those kind of promoted contents on the front page and the index page as needed. And I mentioned a little bit already, but this is possible now on results pages for editorial. We're adding utility regions there. That will give you the option now to have, banner ads or even text ads in search results pages on classifieds, on editorial, and in other places in the site. So a lot of really great things that you can do with that. I'm just going to jump here really quick and just show what this looks like in the live world here. So a couple of things you can see over here. So this is the new utility regions, and you can see how it collapses over there. Here's my page customizations, and then my utility regions over here. You click on the double arrow, and that opens up for you. They will come closed so that you will see all the different groups here, and then you can just open up the groups and see the different regions that are available for that particular group. When you click on one of these, it gives you a little preview of what this particular region will look like. And if you click on that, it gives you a big preview and a description of what it looks like. It has kind of a wireframe here and then a wireframe of what it looks like in mobile. And then what you do is you actually have and this is just a standard region like you're used to that would exist over here. You can click to add a block. You can lock this region if you don't want to have, if certain people without lock permissions, you don't want them to be able to touch this, you can do that. And then in general, you can just drag and drop the block over there. You can have multiple blocks there. You can change what the blocks look like, drag and drop them around. And these are now, then I have to save this page obviously to make these changes, but those now can be edited and just like you would with standard blocks. So that's really great. And I just wanted to show quickly, this is just an example of a YouTube page, and a YouTube page I added another block to the bottom to again promote content from other areas there. And this is just a quick example of a long form article, and I added a content block to the bottom of that to promote additional, to promote the print edition. And then you can also see at the bottom down here, I have popular stories. So again, just think about some of these things that you've always wanted to have additional content here, or perhaps you wanted an additional ad placement there. And as for those types of things, just think if we now have a spot available for that, and you can always make requests if there's a spot that you have always wanted to do something. We have a lot more capabilities now to add additional placements, and that's something that obviously you can look at. And like I said, we're adding a bunch more things in the future that relate to this, so look out for the new features that we have coming out related to this as well. And that's it. I'll go back to the here.
Thank you. A lot of great stuff was covered today. Now's a great time to type in a question if you have one into the question box. Just as a reminder, we talked about the content exchange, the selection of new channels that we're providing there. And if you'd like to sign up, please contact your sales rep or contentexchange@townnews.com today. And then Christine talked about all of the new possibilities that are made available by the utility regions feature. We have had a number of questions come in, so I'm gonna dive in there. There are two questions that are sort of related to going back to the benefits of the content exchange. The first is the content free to share and free to use? And then the benefit is more eyeballs. What else? And then also, how does this benefit smaller newspapers?
Right, so yeah, the content exchange program is completely free. That's one of the things that we set out to do from the very beginning. So there's no setup, there's no monthly fee. Obviously the benefit is when we talk about what we've seen from a data standpoint of adding more content to sites is we're able to increase the number of page views a site has overall by several percent, but about 1 to 2% per channel that we add to a site. Obviously, there's a plateau that you reach with a certain amount of content, but we're trying to push beyond that plateau. The thing about content is when a user comes to your site, you have a very short period of time to engage them in something on there, and the more content that you have available of varied different topics, the more likely you're going to be able to convert that user into more page views. So the content exchange provides more variety beyond what you're normally providing. A lot of it, what we're seeing is these are content areas where there's high level of user interest, high level of revenue available, but a newspaper doesn't typically have the resources to cover those topics. And that's really not what we don't want our customers to have to do, is all pivot to covering, what's popular on TV, what movies came out this week, when we have this content that's available from other providers. It allows newspapers to focus on the areas that they're experts in and what they do well, while also supplementing that with content from other people. For small newspapers, the benefit by receiving more content is actually more beneficial to them. What we've seen, especially for state resources, so like we've been pushing out these state channels, local community newspapers who are in these states where we have these state channels available have seen large increases in page views just from people reading topics about these state-specific channels. So there's definitely a lot of value to the smaller newspapers in there. From a content standpoint, in terms of like the small newspapers creating the content, I mean, we're pretty democratic in how we approach. So we don't weigh who created the content as much as if it's a good piece of content. So they're able to then get their content available. If it's a good piece of content, it's going to make it across into the network just like any other larger publication would.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing to that. One of our partners recently did a test. in one channel, I believe it was Home and Garden, a lot of their sites weren't posting much content to that channel. And so they'd been seeing a steady decline in the number of page views in that channel. So what they started doing is they set up a control group of a certain number of their newspapers, and then they had a test group of some others that they were actually feeding this curated content into. The control group actually continued their decline, and I believe they declined an additional 30% in page views. And the test group actually gained 150% in page views. Now granted, as Tim pointed out, overall to total site traffic is probably a few percentage points, but it shows what you can get for lift in those types of curated channels.
Yeah, and everything that we're doing, we're measuring different engagement metrics, time on site, pages per session. We want to see that this content's actually performing well and in growth, and that's same thing our partner who did their test do. They're looking at these engagement metrics. It's moving beyond just page views, and can we convert that user to more page views when they visit your site, and also encouraging, the numbers we want to see is when that user comes to your site and they see that there's content they're interested in, that they come back the next day. One of the things we pay really close attention to is daily active users, and weekly active users, monthly active users, and how do those numbers compare to your print reach and your audience, and your demographics of your community. So I think a lot of times as newspapers we try to grow our users, or our page view. Let's grow our sessions and our users to match the same number of people that we have our distribution hours. So it's gotta get to 30,000, 40,000 users a week. Okay, but then when we look at DAUs, you might have 3,000 or 5,000. So can we get that DAU number, daily active user number, up to 30,000? And the way to do that, and where we've seen a little bit of growth too, is if there's more content that they're interested in on the days they do come, then they tend to come back more frequently.
And if you don't have access, if you're smaller daily or weekly and no longer have access to AP content, this is another way to fill out some sections or that you're having trouble filling out.
And we're working on a lot of one of our main goals for 2016 is more ways to, kind of what Tim mentioned and what I mentioned in the utility region stuff, we're really looking for new ways to turn the one page view of an article, try to get them to engage and do another page view, click on another thing, find more content that's interesting to them. And one thing that we found is that as we start surfacing additional content, if you need to have additional content. So if you're trying to find more things that are related to this karate story, or more things that are funny dog videos, or more things that are about Iraq, something like that, those types of things, you need to have that additional content that you can promote things to those users that are interested in those specific topics. So the content exchange really provides an additional influx of stories, so you can start matching that content with the things that that particular user are interested in.
Great, thank you. We have a series of questions on the utility regions now. The first question is, should opt inserts be changed to use utility regions?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if the reason, if there is a specific utility region that is in the same spot as an opt-in point, it might be beneficial to you to do that so that you have the ability to manage it through the block area, which might be a little bit more easy depending on what your staff and things like that. But yeah, if there's an external service that you're adding, commenting, or maybe a video service, or maybe even something like a analytics program or something like that, as long as you don't need those to be in the head or in other off-page areas of the page, as long as they're fine to be at the bottom of the article, that would be a good idea to do that, to convert those to an HTML block and then add them to the bottom of the page. The advantage that opt-in points would have is that in case somebody takes them off of the sports page, obviously, so if it's something like Chartbeat, you might want to use an opt-in point just because of the fact that it's less easy to do. So it kind of depends on what your use case is there. If you want something that's more permanent and that other staff members have less access to, you might still decide to use the opt-in regions, but if it's a matter of Taboola code or some other kind of additional code, that might be a beneficiary to put that on the bottom of the pages through that or if you're testing something, that's another great way to test out code. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily, it depends on what your goals are with that.
That kind of dovetails into another question. What level of permissions are required for access to the utility regions?
That's a good question. They are the same level of permissions to just get into the block editor. They are just additional regions on those specific pages. So depending on the level that a user has in the block editor, I mentioned the fact that you can lock these regions just like you can lock other regions on the page. And if you wanted to have specific regions or utility regions that were only accessible to a certain level of admin within your organization, I would recommend looking at the lock functionality. Remove the lock functionality from everybody if they already have it, or just give it to the main couple of admins on your site, and then you could go through and lock those places that you want to have kind of tighter restrictions on, and then they won't be able to make changes to those regions.
Okay. What is the impact of these article utility sections for fixed content? For example, the fixed big asset one that also appears at the top of an article.
So in terms of the ad regions, yeah, I mean, we actually expect that some customers might prefer to use all ad blocks and utility regions and no fixed positions for their ads on the article pages. That is very possible. And in fact, we probably will see a lot of new sites that will most likely be setting up their article pages using ad blocks and utility regions instead of the fixed positions. There's not really any benefit to doing it that way if you're already using fixed positions and you're fine with that. That kind of provides more flexibility in the future if there's new sites being set up. I will say that in a couple of cases, fixed ad positions, there's the smart ad setting on fixed ad positions on the article page where the ads are more mobile friendly and they jump from the right rail into the article to kind of maintain a higher above the fold setting for the right rail ads. So if you're using those, that is kind of some additional functionality that only fixed positions would have. But it does give you the possibility of putting, you can still use your visibility classes to hide things in mobile and show things in desktop. So you can do some additional mobile only ad regions that you might not have had the capability of doing before, putting those in the article rail and things like that. So I don't think that if you're currently using fixed positions, there's no reason to necessarily transfer things, but that is something that is very possible to use those regions for ad blocks, and we fully expect people to do that. I think I answered that.
Sounded good to me. Will the wireframe grids on Flex Showcase be updated to show the new regions, especially on dynamic pages?
I'm not. Is he talking about? I think they're talking about some of the pages that just show like big blocks of color where all the regions are. I think.
Sounds right.
And if that's the case, I don't know if the ones on the Flex Showcase site are going to be documented, but the ones in the Docs site will be. I'll have to check on that to see what exactly they're linking to. But yeah, that's a good idea. If those pages can be updated to show those options. Most of these are not on the front page and the index page, which is typically the pages where we have the wireframes showing. But that's possible that they could do an additional page showing some of these places on an article page or something like that as an example. So yeah, we can definitely look into that.
Do URL schedules work with the utility regions?
Yes, they should. They are tied together, so they will work with inheritance and with schedules and things like that. You just have to set up the whole page and obviously save the region, and they all flow together. Yep.
Okay. And one more question. If we create a custom UTL block, can we use that in a utility region? That would give non-UTL people access to control usage. Yes, if I understand the question, you could. So a custom block that your staff created can go into a utility region just like it can go into any other region.
So yes, that could be placed there. I'm not sure about the part of that they would have access to that. I mean, just like any other block, you can place a custom block in any region. These are just regions. The reason why they're in a separate panel is just because we don't have any place to visually display them on the page because you can't see that dynamic content there. So they're kind of off to the side because we don't have a place to show them, but they're exactly the same as other regions.
Great. Thanks for all the questions, and thanks for answering them so thoroughly. You can move on to the final slide here. To stay connected with us, our documentation site is available at help.blockcms.com. As always, you can, if you have any questions about what we've discussed today, you can call our support line at 800-293-9576 or visit support.townnews.com. Our partner community is a great place to swap ideas with other customers and to dig deeper into blocks. And that's at community.townnews.com. And you can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. We also offer a variety of email communiques, a newsletter, software release notes and service advisories, webinar announcements, etc. And you can subscribe to those emails by visiting townnews.com, clicking news, and you'll see a sidebar that allows you to sign up for all of those emails. That is it. We've worked through all of the questions. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we're planning to have another customer webinar next month on the first Thursday of next month. An email will go out for that shortly. So thank you very much.